All right, so welcome to the second of four sessions of Amber Diceless. Last time we set up our characters, we established who they are, we built some relationships between them, we found out who they're related to, and from there we rolled out into some story elements, which I'm going to come back to in just a second. This is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts. The Gauntlet is an online gaming community. We have a Patreon that supports all of our various projects. We have a big online gaming calendar. We have a magazine that comes out monthly that Patreon backers get access to. We have a forum, and we've got like a half dozen different podcasts, including a new one that's starting tomorrow, which will be today when this recording comes out, which will be a trophy AP, which, having played in this AP, it's pretty horrible. In a really good way, in that way of trophy was a game I wasn't sure about. People had sold it to me, and it was what people said. But anyway, we're playing Amber right now, and this is a diceless game. Is a game from the 1990s, and we're kind of playing it with a little more 21st century sensibilities. I think in some ways there have been some revisions and additional rules that have come out. And of course, there's another adaptation of it called Lords of Gossamer and Shadow, which uses some of the same mechanics but makes some changes to that, and certainly doesn't use the Amber setup. We are using the X card as our standard safety tool, which is on the table. And then last time we hit some lines and veils, a particular line for both torture and sexual violence. And then for a veil, harm to children or animals, and sexual content. So just to remind people about that. Also, feel free if you, you can always X card something, or if you're like, there's something else I want to add to the lines and veils, you can email me that and we'll add that to the list. One of the things people have talked about is doing lines and veils more anonymously. So that's one of the things I want to do in the future going forward. When I do it at cons, we do it anonymously with index cards that I shuffle, and then I put everything together. So I'm going to try and figure out how to do that better online here. So last time, our group started slightly divided. We had Morgard traveling to, I believe, meet someone, and as you traveled there, you found that when you reached the place, there was some kind of illusion or glamour or something, and then you were set upon by these humanoid figures with these great orca-looking heads upon them. At the same time, Simon was traveling through Shadow when he was given a call on his trump from a woman who he knows quite well. Certainly an unrequited crush on the woman known as Catherine, another scion of Amber, and she begged for help and begged for him to come through the trump, which he did, only to kind of find out that in fact she was riding pell-mell on horseback, and he took a tumble at that point, and also then saw a set of these orca figures. And then as that was going on, our scion of Amber, who has taken the path of Shadow, Joanna, was at a meeting of her war council in her Shadow, and in the midst of that, had the pressure of a trump contact or something, had some sort of vision of her father, the late Eric, warning her apparently before these orca attackers came through and set upon Joanna, Joanna's command staff, and then eventually rolled out into the forces of Joanna's army. At the same time, we had Morgard start to move through Shadow to escape these things and realize that they were following him. And at that point, there was a contact between Morgard and Simon, which brought them to the same place. and there was a fight there in which Catherine was quite badly injured, bitten by these things. Others were hurt a little bit, but mostly enough that they could shake it off. They escaped from these, and they found a vehicle eventually rushing their way to get ahead of these things that could move through shadow, and found a vehicle which eventually led them to Joanna's camp, where Joanna, at some cost to her troops and people, had put down these things. And that was sort of where we had left off. There were a couple of things that were revealed in the course of that. Catherine said to Simon and Morgard that she had been with Brea, Morgard's older sister, and that they had been attacked by these things, and that Brea had stayed to hold them off, and Catherine had fled to escape. And you also realize that these things have badly drawn but effective trumps of the characters, of yourselves, each of the three of you, plus Brea, Bastian, Tobias, and Sybil. There are pictures of all of them in and amongst those. And I think the other thing you found out was that these things are certainly creatures of shadow, but a sophisticated working of that shadow. Like it's not a minor conjuring. It's a new and unusual version of that. So let me ask you, did I leave any important details off the table in that summary?
My only question was, these monsters we fought, were they created from shadow or from chaos? I know this is getting pretty medical.
Oh yeah, I'm actually making I'm getting shadow and chaos mixed up in the thing. From chaos. Essentially, they were chaos beings, but different from any kind of creation or binding that you had seen before, Joanna.
Yes. So shadow is like all the worlds that are the reflections of Amber.
Absolutely.
And then chaos is kind of like beyond that, and it's even more chaotic.
It's the wild and the other end of the spectrum from order, from where Amber lies. There lies the course of chaos, which are still tangible. So they're not entirely chaotic. They're like 40K chaos. You know, it has a pattern. So anyway, that is where we're taking up. Joanna, you can see the last sort of sputtering of this Jeep as it kind of comes over the hill, and as you look and see, you will see Simon, who you know, Morgard, who you know. We established that both Simon and Morgard know Catherine. Do you know Catherine?
What's Catherine's relationship to the others?
So she is another scion of Amber, another child of one of the elder Amberites, who, let's say, did not treat Morgard particularly well during the school days of being raised up there, but certainly was raised and trained up there in Amber itself. I know you were there for a while before you left, so I don't know if you knew her.
Yeah, I know Catherine, and I don't like her.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So what would you do, Joanna?
So I'm gonna signal to my soldiers first of all, and they're gonna surround the Jeep with their energy lancers ready.
Okay. So is it Morgard that's driving, or is it Simon that's driving?
I'm driving.
Okay, Morgard, you're driving along, and you come down over the hill. You probably know at least a little bit of the heraldry of Joanna, so you'll recognize that. And as you kind of come down the hill, you'll see these forces with these energy lances move to kind of surround where the Jeep is at. Do you keep going? Do you come to a stop? How do you approach this, Morgard?
Oh, I think that basically what happens is I kind of, the Jeep pulls up short and we see it kind of turn in the dirt and everything and kind of turn sideways, and all the forces kind of advance or, surround it with the energy lances. And I stand up and don't really pay them much heed. I stand up, out through the Jeep, the roof of the Jeep, and I shout to Joanna, I say, "Hurry, Joanna, we're all under attack. I can explain. Come join us."
I'm well aware that we're under attack. But I have no need to join you. I have my protection right here.
Simon, what's your reaction to that?
I'm like just the slightest bit hesitant to say this, but then I just think, screw it, we have bigger things to deal with than our egos. And I just go, if what you've had to deal with is anything like what we've had to deal with, and I gestured to who's protecting her, and I go, that's not enough.
I assume, Joanna, you're trying to keep at least slightly hidden of how much you actually lost in the fight. I mean, they're still cleaning up the bodies in the center of your camp too.
Yeah, but I mean, I've got an army, and I lost like maybe 20 or 30 guys max.
Oh yeah. You can. I mean, you could easily put more into the mill.
So I'm going to say, Simon, you never had much faith in armies and Warcraft, but trust me, whatever's coming towards us, we can handle it. But you're welcome to join us and be under my protection. Even you, Catherine, you're welcome, I suppose.
And now that you kind of probably approached a little bit closer, you can see that Catherine is pretty badly wounded. Morgard?
Those that are pursuing us can travel through the shadow. And they also have crude... I'm sorry. Joanna, did you discover the Trumps in the last session?
Yeah.
Okay. So you already know that. And they have crude drawings of us, making us wanted, and they have taken several out. They have taken someone out. You might be better protected, but I'm not sure you could withstand all of their forces. They were divided amongst us.
So you would rather that I come with you and flee from my armies? Why would I be better protected elsewhere?
I'm not saying you would be better protected, and I'm not suggesting that you leave your armies here to die, but if you stay here, they will all be drawn to this place. And we need information about what is happening and why these people are against us and coming for us. The only way that we can truly defeat them is to know where they're coming from and why.
That's fair enough. Why don't you come in and we'll I'll get my medics to patch up your friend Catherine. And then we can I've got some of their trump cards, and we can take a look at them.
Okay. Simon, is that agreeable to you?
Yeah. It's actually a little bit of news to me that she's got some of the trump cards, because I've only heard about them, and to know that. And also it'll give me a chance to breathe a bit and focus on Catherine, because she didn't tell me the whole story last time.
So you will drive in through this camp. I believe last time, Joanna, you described that this realm is an ice realm, a realm of cold, and so you're probably seeing your breaths as you walk through here, all of you, and all of these warriors. They're sort of human, but not quite. They're a little bit shorter. They're a little bit different. They've all got the fur clothing on. You can tell that they are giving Joanna a wide berth, like something has happened this evening that has made them nervous, and so they seem to be looking with a certain amount of worry about that. She's calmed down the real panic, but they still have a memory of these things. So Joanna, tell me what does what is the big detail, the key thing we see when we come into your, is it an actual medical tent with technology, or is it a physiker, or what kind of place would you take them to have Catherine treated?
I think it's a big tent, and the technology they have is like stuff that they've dug up out of the ice. They don't really know how to make it. So in the middle of the tent, there's this big kind of glowing, like purple orb on a stand, which radiates heat. And that's kind of, these orbs are what we use to survive in the cold. And so there's all kind of, the patients are lying on beds near the heat, but the actual technology that they have for medicine is like not very far above medieval level.
Okay. So you will get Catherine in there. Simon Morgard, you'll notice that clearly there's been a big fight. I mean, you know that from the smell of the blood outside, but you also see a lot of wounded in here. But the doctors will move and clear a space for them to look at Catherine's wound. Let me ask you this: one of the things that is about Amber is people have skills that they've just learned, they've done, and they've spent X years in a place to study particular skills or things like that. So are any of you physicians, doctors?
Probably in my time in various shadow places, I'm actually a physician of some kind. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like I've also got enough in my corner that, like, even if I don't know exactly what's going on, if I have some time, I can figure it out.
Yeah, and you'll look around. They have basic things like keeping things sanitary, and probably some alcohol and water, and you can go and begin to do a basic stitch on her shoulder there.
And so I think that whenever I pull up the Jeep, it kind of skids in the ice, and I hop out, and I think as Simon carries Catherine in to the tent, I walk around to the back of the Jeep, and I pop the little tackle box kind of thing, the little keeper box in the back, and I pull a couple of jackets out, as well as the first aid kit, close it, and then as I walk into the tent, I toss the keys to one of the soldiers that's standing guard outside, and just walk on in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that shot of them looking at this, maybe, and not sure what it is, and
the Jeep beeps, beep, beep.
Beep. So while Simon is occupied in using the first aid kit and taking care of Catherine's shoulder, Morgard, are you speaking with Joanna? Are you doing something else? What do we see?
So I think I'm studied in medical lore, but not practiced. So I think that when we walk in, there's a bunch of people here. Are there any of the bodies of the orca creatures here?
I think, yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to preempt.
No, that seems fine.
Yeah, so I think I'll walk over and I'll start looking them over to see what I can find out from them.
Okay. So I think that it will be no problem, Simon, for you to get that shoulder patched up. Catherine is probably going to fade into at least a fitful slumber here to recover. Like other Amberites, she has a high endurance, but she needs time to recover. And I think you can check out these bodies, Morgard. They are unusual. You can tell that while they've been changed by by chaos, I'm going to keep doing that. While they've been changed by chaos, you suspect that the sort of the orca form, this head and this humanoid shape, is native to them. Like this is what they look like in their original form, but they've definitely been gifted with powers, and they've been strengthened, and their skin has been toughened by this magic. Does that seem like fair info?
That does.
Okay. Did you have a question?
I'm looking for basic stuff. Are they water breathers as well as air breathers, since they have a fish-like, orca-like face?
They seem to be amphibians, so it does seem like they could go in water. They could go on land without too much problem.
And is there anything else that is characteristic of them? Like, I saw the ones back in the wooded area that ambushed me, and the ones in the fight. Are these bundled up for cold? Were they prepared? Anything like that?
These ones had jackets on, but it is one thing you noticed when they were moving between the time that you saw that first group and then they followed you through the shadow, is they were doing that thing where as they traveled through the sort of the basic garb and things that they were wearing was changing to suit that. So that seems to be part of whatever enchantment is on them to help keep them alive.
I see. Okay.
Joanna, what are you doing?
I think I'm going to appoint some new generals, since quite a few of my generals got killed.
Okay.
So I'm going to find some of among the high-ranking officers. Going to pick the ones who seem least disturbed by me turning into a shapeshifter, whatever I was. I'm just going to be like, you, the most loyal ones I can find. I'm going to be like, you guys are the new generals.
And you will go and speak to them. What is it that you do? What is the story that you weave to explain this? To explain people that look like you that have come? To explain what happened earlier this evening? How do you make this into your story?
So I guess I'll call them into a tent and have an emergency council meeting, and I'll be like, you guys are the generals now, and then I'll be like, so do I look like the people who are native to this world? Did they?
I assume the depiction you have is human, so you look human but different. Like you're very amongst them. You stand out. It's very clear you are not like them, but close enough that they can see something of themselves in you. Does that seem fair?
They know that I'm not from the same place as them originally. And I think I've actually led this army across multiple shadows in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, look, I'm going to just tell them the truth. I'm going to say, look, you know that I come from a place beyond what you can comprehend, and these people who've just arrived, let's say that they're something like my family from another place.
Well, are they here to help us with our crusade?
No, we don't need anyone else to help us with our crusade. They're here to ask us for help.
And those things that slew so many of our people, where are they? Where did they come from?
They're also their enemies from another world, but I'm going to deal with them shortly. You don't have anything to fear from those creatures. You should just focus on maintaining discipline in the army, and we're going to be moving out soon to conquer. There's we've got plans that we're on the move to attack someone in this shadow. So I'm just going to be like, look at it this way. The matters of this world are for you to deal with, and the matters from other worlds, I will deal with them.
And you've got you're first rank amongst your brethren in warfare. You've got some points in that. A little bit of the bad stuff kind of knocks against you. So I think it does take you probably at least an hour or two to get this arranged, to speak with them, to convince them to give a story that will allow them to at least be willing to continue on, and to have some understanding of what's happening. Does that seem fair? Simon? Catherine falls asleep. Morgard has his hands up to the elbow, probably in one of these orca corpses. Joanna has headed off to speak to her army. What are you up to? Morgard might be finishing up.
When I get a moment to myself, hang on. I need to look at what I've got. I might not actually have a way to... Yeah, I think because the first thing that I'm thinking of right now is trying to figure out actually if the others are in danger that were also on those cards, then they need to be warned if they haven't already been dealt with. And the foremost among them, besides Catherine, who's asleep in front of me, is Tobias. Because I want to make sure that my brother's okay. I don't think I necessarily have do I have a way to be able to get in touch with him from here without...
Yes, you do.
Oh, my trump.
The crappy trumps.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Yeah, okay. Actually, that might be a good way to see how these work compared to the others and be able to kind of... Okay. So I'm going to kind of pull out the crappy drawing of Tobias and see if I can do a decent job of getting in contact with him.
So I think you will reach through. You'll take the card out. We see you, lift it up, and we see you look at it and kind of concentrate on it. And as these do, when you reach through them, it will go cold, and you'll realize that the contact is weird and sketchy, and almost like it's going through a couple of different filters when you feel that. But eventually you will reach out, and you have that sensation that that the person on the other end of the trump is alive, but they're not conscious.
Okay. Rather than attempt to wake him up or anything like that, I'm going to kind of try and pull myself back through so that I'm just looking at the card again from this current shadow, because especially with the way the drawing is and everything, I don't want to risk coming up with some crappy result, especially with the small amount of bad stuff that I have.
Yeah.
So I think that, I kind of shake my head a bit. And I'll kind of glance over at where Morgard is and just kind of well, I checked on Tobias. He's alive, technically. Doesn't seem like he's conscious.
So I haven't been able to make heads or tail of, where these creatures have come from or why they're after us. I'm going to try to keep a watch out.
Okay.
And see if I can feel anything coming. So I'm going to, I don't know if I need to mind walk the pattern to do this or anything like that, but I'm going to start paying attention to see if I feel any tugs on the shadow, just, at least give someone a heads up if something comes through.
So what do you think, what do you think the process is? What do you think we see of you kind of almost putting a pattern kind of ward in this area around the shadow? How do you set that up? What do we see?
So I think I sit down kind of cross-legged and start to meditate. And I think to the natives, they just see me almost like a monk, sit down and start to meditate. However, I think the other Amberites, the other people who've walked the pattern, see, the pattern itself as I kind of draw it in my mind. And they see kind of a shadow of it as I start to walk through that in order to get a good feel. And once it's kind of established, I think that the area becomes a little bit more solid than a normal shadow is.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, certainly you enhance. I mean, the presence of Amberites in a shadow gives it a greater degree of solidity, and having this many of you in a place does that. And I think, yeah, we will see you kind of walk, kind of get that echo of the silver lines of the pattern as you walk that, and you'll get that set. When you are done, you're exhausted. You are very, very skilled, but you're not the master of psyche, and you are definitely not the master of endurance. And so at the end of that, you come away, you're pretty sure you've put a ward around this, that if these things walk into this shadow, you will know. But you're just exhausted.
Yeah, I think that the way that looks is you see, I'm starting to meditate, and the natives start to see sweat kind of trickle down my forehead, and this look of almost not quite pain, but like there's a struggle going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we will cut forward a couple of hours.
Before you do that, can I just
sure.
do a small retcon to the scene that I just did?
Sure, absolutely. Let's hear.
Because I had a good idea, was that I'll actually tell all the generals we're stepping up the timetable for the invasion that we're planning, so we're going to move out as soon as possible, basically with the goal of kind of distracting everyone from this stuff that's happening.
All right.
So while Simon and Morgard are doing their stuff, they'll see that the camp is gearing up to move, and they'll march in the morning. Yeah,
they're striking the camp. They're rolling things up. They're getting things set. But let's cut forward a couple of hours, and let's do a scene. Let's put Morgard and Simon and Joanna, at a place where food is brought. They're probably in that medical tent. Morgard, Simon, you can tell that this army is gearing up, and will probably in the next couple of hours be heading out from this area. They're leaving the medical tent for last. And they're getting people prepared here. So What kind of food is served in this place, Joanna? Is it meat? Is it fish? Is it a more hearty vegetable fare? What kind of food?
It's mostly meat. Yeah, I think we get our food from like hunting these like big blubbery mammals that hibernate for long portions of the year.
Okay, so not particularly flavorful, and not particularly high cuisine, but a high calorie content to keep people going. Um, and so, Simon, let's come with you. What when the camera comes back on the scene of the three of you seated there, probably a little bit uncomfortably. Joanna seems to be, still holding herself apart. Um, uh, so what we come into you? What are you saying when the camera comes back?
Considering that these creatures seem to be formed from chaos or something of that nature, it would be, it'd be easy to assume that whoever sent them has some affiliation with that. But
there is that.
But with the cards and the knowledge of us and the choices of who, it could very much be someone from Amber.
Absolutely.
And it's very clear that Simon is like kind of laying this out both to kind of talk to himself as much as he's like trying to get out the information to everyone. Because I think, and I think he pauses for a moment and then goes, we have to be extremely careful about who we trust. At least for now. Go ahead.
I thought I'd gotten away from all those machinations and politics of Amber by coming out here, but I suppose that the family can't help pulling me back in. I think that probably these people have some sort of grudge against you two, and they were attacking me because I'm associated with you.
However, if you look here, these are not creatures of Amber or Shadow. These are creatures of chaos. And you're the one who has the closest tie to chaos.
Now, as much as I enjoy infighting amongst the three of us, and let me be frank, I do enjoy it. For once, we aren't going to get very far if we're fighting each other and not whatever is chasing us. Let's assume, at least for the time being, that the people on these cards wouldn't put themselves on these cards themselves. So, despite your affiliations or prior affiliations, we should assume for the time being that we're at least on the same side temporarily and actually figure out what to do about them. And
well, I trust that both of you are not moving against me. But as for the others who are on these crude trumps, it would be very easy for them to, for an enemy to include their own face among the trumps to send us off the trail.
And at that point, Morgard looks at Joanna and then looks over at Catherine and then leans back.
So I'm going to assume that I see that. And I'm just going to kind of momentarily sit there and go, well, I may be the only person in the room who might take her side. I will not rule it out as a possibility. That said, one of those things genuinely tried to bite the crap out of her. Like, she's genuinely injured. So, if it is someone in this room, then we have to be extra on our guard, because that means that they're willing to go to great lengths to even harm themselves to get back at us. And that means that the number of people we can trust just got smaller.
I'm gonna get out the orca trumps that I got from their bodies and put them on the table.
Yeah,
spread them out so everyone can see them.
The same set that they do.
So
And who's in this list other than us, Joanna, and Tobias?
So it's your older siblings, Brea and Bastian, and what you will recognize as Joanna's sibling, Sybil.
They're all specifically our families of this generation. Families or people we, and I think I kind of give a very brief glance to Catherine, care about. And if that's the case, well, too bad we can't go back and choose not to care about people. That would make things a lot simpler. But it does narrow down who we have to worry about.
I'm gonna look at the trump that shows Sybil, and I'm gonna be like, whoever made these trumps must not know that much about me if they think that this one is someone that I care about.
They're your family, though. And the thing about families, if I've learned anything, there's always a point when we start to relax just the slightest bit, and that is when people use them the most. You thought you got out of all of these machinations, and now look where we are. We all thought we were free on some level. Freedom's a myth.
I think you'll hear Catherine kind of coming to, and she will sit up carefully and look around, and sees Joanna, and clearly, these two do not care for each other, and certainly she sits up from where she's at, and she comes over to where you're at, Simon, and stands kind of close by you, since you're probably the one person here who, doesn't hate her. And she will say, "Have we lost them?"
I think I'll go ahead. Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. So,
Wait, I'm sorry. What?
I think you said for now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were both going to say that at the same time, but
Sorry, I don't mean if I keep talking over you. It's just like I'd like the delay in the connection.
oh, no worries.
Having done interviews with people in Australia, yeah, I know the delay there. So, she says, we should go back to Amber, or we should flee somewhere else. I mean, if they are after us, they could go through shadow like we could, and I mean, maybe there'll be more next time. There are enough of us gathered here. I don't know.
Tell us more about the attack that occurred on you and Gray. Who else was there, and how did they find you?
I had a note sent to me from Gray that asked me to meet her in a shadow known as the Tower of Nazli. It was not one I knew of, but I asked. It was outside the ring of the shadows that lie closest to Amber. It was outside that. And I know that Brea has been in favor lately, and so I traveled there and eventually found my way to where she was. And she seemed surprised to see me. And the indication that I got is that she had been sent there on a mission, and that there was something happening there. I didn't have a chance to find out more about that before groups of these things appeared and set upon us. And in the midst of that fighting, Brea said that I should make my escape, and she stood to defend us, and I rode to get help, and after I'd made my way a bit, I realized that they could go through shadow, and I rode faster, and that is when I called Simon.
When these things first appeared, how did they approach you? Did they just open through a rift, or was there a noise?
And as you know, when you travel through shadow, when you come to a new place where there are people there, it's often hard to tell the manner of it. I'm certainly not as skilled in the pattern as you are, to be able to sense that. But it felt to me like they must have shadow walked there.
I see.
So I'm watching Catherine intently.
Uh-huh.
Is this the whole story?
There's something that twings wrong here to you, and an omission that I think you will put two and two together with here. When Catherine first arrived and spoke with you, she told you about Brea. She told you about the Trumps. She told you that the Trump for her had been lost in the fighting with these things. And you took that as fine. However, Catherine's Trump isn't in Joanna's set either.
Okay. So just to clarify,
Yeah.
Brea's is in both.
Yep. Everybody but Catherine. Catherine hasn't appeared in either of the sets.
Okay. For the moment, I will notice that and kind of keep that in the back of my mind for later. It is not something that I necessarily want to bring up in front of all three other people at the same time. I don't need more reasons for them to go, let's be suspicious of Catherine. They've done that on their own.
Let's come and check in with Joanna. What is your thinking at this point?
I'm curious, has anyone tried to contact Brea since this shit went down? Because we have her trump, right?
Right. I believe the only trump that has been attempted so far is Tobias's. Do you want to try Brea's trump, Joanna?
What's Brea's like role in Amber? What would I remember about her?
Well, so here's what we know, and I'm going to have Morgard fill in a little bit more. Brea and Bastion are Morgard's older siblings, male and female. They are twins, not identical, but they are twins. They didn't treat Morgard the best, but I believe neither were they truly awful to Morgard. Is that work with your recollections of that, Morgard?
Yes. As I recall, our parents, Flora, our mother, Flora, was very behind a lot of machinations around the courts, and she dismissed me as not being useful politically.
Mm-hmm.
And Brea and Bastion are useful, and they are eager to show their benefit to the courts.
So does that give you a good window there, Joanna?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to put down the Brea trump in front of Morgard, and I'm going to say, I think we should try and contact your sister. What do you think?
Push it over to her.
We've seen that contacting people via the trumps is dangerous, but it might be the best way for us to have a sense of what's going on. And I think, Morgard wolfs down the last of his stew that they've been eating, and then leans back and starts to concentrate on Brea's trump.
And you will, as we saw before with Simon, you will extend lay the card out. You will extend that, put your hand on it. You feel a little bit of that coldness there, but it doesn't go any further. In a sense that tells you they're blocking contact, or someone else is blocking contact, or they're well and truly unconscious or dead.
And I kind of, after that, I kind of lean back and I push the card back and I say, there's no answer. Dead or reluctant to talk, one way or another, Brea's not going to be talking to us soon.
The next thing I can suggest then is we could go back to this shadow where Brea was supposedly attacked, look for clues, maybe try to figure out what this mission was that she was doing. Perhaps whoever it was that sent her on the mission is the one who's responsible for all of this.
It's a good idea.
Catherine says, I would like to go back to Amber. I would like to go back to someplace safer than being out here with more of these things lurking about. And going back to the place where I was first attacked, I don't know.
If it worries you that much, I will take you back to Amber myself before traveling to the tower.
That would be most excellent.
Okay. Then once we make arrangements to get to the tower, I will stop in Amber first. And I do my best to subtly give Morgard a look that, You know how to use my trump if you need me. But remember, it works both ways, so I'm going to try and reach out if I need you.
There is a problem here if either of us is unconscious, but yes.
Well,
Of course.
most likely why then I'll be the one contacting you.
So, Simon, you're going to make arrangements and move to travel to go find the Grand Road and travel the fastest route to Amber with Catherine.
Yes.
And Morgard and Joanna. You're going to go to the Tower of Nazli, find your way there to investigate that place. Does that seem right?
That sounds good.
Okay.
And I will certainly join them following.
Then let's take our 5-minute break here. And when we come back, we will move on. We'll time lapse to those points. So let's start with you, Simon, shall we?
Let's.
So how do you travel up the Grand Road back? I mean, is it walk? Do you find a horse and ride? What do you imagine the transit is? Eventually, once you get close, technology will give out. But
Then I'm probably going on horseback.
Okay.
Just so that it's easier to have a person with me.
yeah, so you will walk for a bit until you find a place where you can locate a horse. Shadow walk a bit further. Make sure you have one with the proper bridle and on all of that. What color horse is it?
It is the light brown.
Okay.
Let's say, yeah.
If I were a different person, I would know what the horse term is for that, like roan or whatever. I don't know. Just like if people do motorcycles or cars, can't tell you anything. So yeah, you will ride. Catherine will also get a horse. I mean, she's an Amberite like you, so she's recovered enough to ride on her own, though wincingly. And you will ride up the Grand Road. Tell me a striking feature of Amber that for you is the thing that you focus on as you begin to redraw the world. I mean, that's how it is it's about remembering what a place looks like and then drawing that in. So what is the feature of Amber that you focus in on?
When I draw it in my mind, one of the things that's usually apparent with most drawings is that the key is to draw an outline of things and then enumerate the details within that and kind of stay within those lines. And the thing in my mind, which I don't always know if it's what everyone sees about Amber, but the thing that I notice clearly is that when I draw it in my mind, the key is to make as clear an outline as possible and then start to detail just outside of it. Like, things don't fall exactly within the lines, but that's how you know Amber versus Shadow. Shadow, everything seems to fall within some exact logic that works for that shadow, and with Amber, it's just the reality isn't that simple.
And you will take that ride. It is a few hours just by the nature of the travel and so on and shifting things. And you pass through those close by kingdoms as you head up towards Mount Colvere and to the walls of Amber, and we'll see you hit one of those sets of fields there, and you are in Amber proper, and you will hear someone shout out and hail you, and you will see another rider on a horse. He's accompanied by a few other people. They seem to be doing like they're not dressed for war. They're not dressed for a hunt or anything. They seem maybe more work. And you will see your father is there, and you will see Godfrey, and he looks surprised to see you. And he stops his horse and dismisses the people that are with him and comes riding over to where you are. It's like, Simon, what are you doing here?
I'd love to say a simple visit home and escorting this lovely lady back, but, well, the truth is never that simple, is it?
And you haven't seen your father for a while, have you?
No. So I think, I do kind of slow the horses, and once we're both at a, point where we can like get off, I will I'm at the very least on good terms with my father, so I'll kind of step off and embrace him.
What is the thing about his manner or his dress or his appearance that shows to you the passing of years? He is not a full-blooded Amberite like your mother.
Um, I think because of the amount of time it's been since I've seen him, uh, uh, the way he carries himself is a little more deliberate, in the sense that like he's far more conscious of every move, every bone in his body that he's moving and everything. And there also seems to be the look in his eyes of I think before, it might even be a thing between me and my father that I frequently say things are never quite that simple. And it's kind of this inside joke because it's true, but also like it's kind of amusing. And yet, I don't think he found it quite as funny this time because the passing of the years, he knows that while the truth is a little funny, there's something in what I said that gives pause.
And he will say, and he nods to her. He clearly knows who she is, knows Catherine, and he will say, Lady Catherine, and how did you come to that injury? Is this why Simon has accompanied you, brought you back? And she kind of looks to you to respond.
And have there been any reports in Amber of some sort of creatures off and about with heads like orcas?
It's like orcas. That is not a thing I have heard of. I think I would have heard it remarked upon if something came close to Amber of that. I'm sure you could find it amongst the shadows, but that's not something of my ilk. But I do not travel as you do. So
well, I figured the best way to seek out information is to ask those you might not expect it from.
Well, perhaps you could talk to your friend Benedict. He says in that way that says who you spend more time with and like better than you like your own father kind of thing.
And I will smile slightly sheepishly at that and say, that is not a bad idea. At the same time, at some point, you and I should make a point to spend more time together when my travels are not so fraught with whatever they've been fraught with.
I am always here.
Yes, that does make you easy to find.
I'm going to cut from that. We'll come back on a bit, but tell me, Morgard, Joanna, I assume that it is Morgard that is shaping the shadow to take the two of you along to the Tower of Nazli.
Joanna, do you have a preference? Because you could always use Chaos, the Logris.
Yeah, actually, I think maybe if we're having like a debate about it, I'm going to be like, oh look, sure, we can go the long way, and we can, do the whole hell ride thing and go through dozens of shadows on the way there, or we could just go straight there with the Logris.
So the Logris requires that you know the specific thing that you kind of grab onto. So how is it that you know the Tower of Nazli enough that you could reach out and pull yourself to it?
So it's not enough just to know the name.
Pardon?
Is it not enough just to know the name?
No, you have to know the thing. You have to know what it is to be able to send the tendrils out to go and get it.
All right. Well, is it okay if I say that I have passed through that shadow a long time ago?
Sure.
I remember the tower.
Tell me something about the Tower of Nazli.
It is. It's actually a tower that's carved from the stone, like it was a geological formation of some strange occurrence caused like this stone to form a tower by itself, and then people carved the chambers inside it. And I don't know what it is now, but at the time that I passed through there, it was a fortress. And I passed there actually when I first left Amber on my way out to Chaos.
Morgard, are you traveling by shadow, or are you allowing Joanna to pull you through via the tendrils of the Logris?
Is there a risk to the Logris?
Well, not necessarily. It's just that Joanna's doing it, and
right.
Joanna has 8 points of bad stuff.
So basically, I'd read something about the Logris causes you to go insane or something crazy like that. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't know how that worked.
You're not actually invoking it. She would just be pulling you along.
Fantastic. So no, I'm actually studying what the Logris is like. From my perspective, it stinks and it's tainted, but I'd like to know more. And so I'm basically taking notes.
So Joanna, what does Morgard see when you extend those tendrils and extend them out deep through the shadows to find the tower, grab onto it, and then reel you both into it?
Yeah, so I'm going to say I hope you can handle this, Morgard, because the Logris, it's quicker and it's more direct, but it's not necessarily as comfortable as hopping in a Jeep and driving on a scenic road. So first thing, I'm going to need you to just put your arms around me and hold on tight, because this basically it pulls me, so you need to be holding on to me. And then I'm gonna reach out, and actually an eye is going to open in the palm of my hand, which is like how I kind of focus the tentacles, and then because of his pattern mastery, he probably see that there's this tentacle reaching out across multiple worlds of shadow, and there's many worlds kind of stretching out between us and this tower that I'm visualizing. And this big tower of stone at our destination, and the invisible tentacle wraps around this tower, and then I just pull as hard as I can, and it's like thonk, and we just go there. I mean, sending the tentacle takes a little time, but the actual journey is almost instantaneous. It's like a rubber band snapping. Go ahead.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is striking and impressive. And you say to yourself, I am really lucky that I know the Tower of Nazli, because otherwise this would have taken a long time for me to have found it and yanked us through. So you knew it, and you're able to make yourself look good. And yeah, you will pull through. We see the violet skies of the shadow that the Tower of Nazli rests in. We see the greenery on the ground. and you will pull through, and you will find yourself at the base of this tower. And Morgard, the moment you get into this shadow, the moment you kind of pulled in, and you kind of are land, and you're disoriented by this because this is not the way that you traveled before. But you have, advanced pattern imprint. So you know pattern. You can tell that this is very wrong. That something is really wrong here.
Like this is not the correct place.
You don't know if that's what it is. But what do you do? What do you say?
Well, I think, as you're searching out the tendril, I put an arm around Joanna's waist, and I think I kind of hold my nose a little bit. But I'm thinking all along, this will be a great paper to write back in the library about the comparison between traveling this way and traveling through the pattern. And I think once we get there, all of that's wiped out of my mind. I'm just completely consumed with there's something wrong here. And I think I stumble back almost as if I'm assaulted.
Okay.
And then I start reaching out with my senses to see if I can feel, is this shadow not where it's supposed to be? What's going on?
So you will reach out for that and kind of start to extend your senses. And one of the things is you stumble back, is you really do stumble back. Like something's keeping you kind of off balance here as you're walking and kind of looking around. And for a moment, it's almost like you can't quite get the shadow to focus in for you. We'll come back to you in a second. Joanna, you've pulled through. It's awesome. You're awesome. Look at that. But you don't like the reaction you want from Morgard.
I think my reaction to doing like a Logris journey is kind of like the reaction I would have to doing a shot of strong liquor. It's like, whew, that was great.
Yeah,
because it hits you physically. And then when I turn around and see Morgard looking a bit uneasy, I'm gonna say, can be a bit rough the first few times you travel by Logris.
And I actually, hold up my hand and kind of look around, and I'm getting the feel for the place.
I want you to imagine this, if you will, that as you are standing there on this ground, kind of looking at Joanna, and Joanna is kind of looking at you. There's this feeling to you, like Morgard, like the ground is kind of tipping. And I want you to imagine that if you were kind of standing up here on this piece of cloth, and this piece of cloth is like this where my finger is kind of where Joanna is, and it's to your vision, you're looking down as this well of the world is kind of forming around Joanna. She looks like she's not even realizing it as the ground kind of stretches, and it's almost like there's a duplicate sheet of the world cloth over this shadow, and Joanna is like weighing on it, and it's pulling it down, and you're trying to balance and keep from getting pulled in as well. Morgard.
Yeah, I lean forward and grab a hold of Joanna's arm at the wrist, and I think I lay down flat, trying to pull her back.
Wow, you're going to have a great psyche, do you? Just to get a little bit of that 15. Joanna, you're standing there, and then Morgard's arm comes out and grabs onto you, and he like throwing himself to the ground for some reason. And he's trying to talk, and you're kind of not understanding what he's saying. What do you do?
Nerds, they just I just think that he really couldn't handle that Logris journey. So I say, all right, buddy, let's find somewhere for you to like take a little breather and maybe have a drink. and I'm gonna try and like pick him up over my shoulder. What happens?
Even as you're trying to balance yourself, you're like, okay, I've just about got myself oriented, and then suddenly Joanna reaches over and grabs and picks you up, and you're falling with her. Morgard, you could let yourself fall with Joanna. You could wrench yourself out of her grip there as she picks you up to try and get away. Your strength is not, I mean, she just edges you out, in that. If you probably exhaust yourself doing that, or you could try with all your might to pull both of you out of this.
So the most important thing is that we both get out of this okay. So I'm not going to abandon Joanna. I'm going to go all in and try with all of my might to stabilize us so we don't slide down the hole anymore. And if need be, I'll go down with her.
So tell me, what do you think is the cost that you pay to kind of even that scale to get yourself to be able to, you're going to be exhausted and unconscious at the end of this, but what's the other cost that you're going to pay?
So I think that I start, I'm not sure. I think I start scrabbling around and holding on. And as we kind of fold into this well,
let me offer you, if you're uncertain, I've got an offer for you.
Okay, that sounds good.
I think that to do this, I mean, Joanna's just a little bit stronger than you. You're trying to push against this. Joanna clearly doesn't see what's going on, that what you're seeing. I think that in doing this, I think you're going to break your arm.
Oh, okay. That sounds fine.
She's got a bigger grip and so on. Joanna, Morgard twists in your hands as you do that for some reason, and then kind of exerts himself, and you hear that crack as the bones give, and you're a little startled, and you both kind of fall back to the ground, and you see that Morgard is kind of laying there unconscious.
I want to say Jesus, but I don't think people from Amber respect Jesus. So I'm going to say what. Yeah.
What do you suppose is the expletive that you've learned in your time in the army? What is that?
I think it's actually it's a word from the world of Frost, and it literally means to eat one's own mother.
Okay. So you give that out, you kind of shout that, and you look around, and the world seems like the color has slightly changed.
Like we're in a slightly different shadow.
Yeah, you look around and you're like, you have enough sense, you've moved through these things that those kinds of details stick with you. And like the violet that I described, the color in the sky is maybe a little bit lighter now. And you're pretty sure you didn't move through shadow. So you're not sure what's going on or why Morgard is out.
The tower is still here?
Yeah, tower's still here. Otherwise, it's almost like it's just the quality of the light has changed.
Okay, well, I think now I realize that something is really wrong, that Morgard has, from my point of view, broken his own arm and then passed out. But something happened. So I am going to pick him up again more gently and look around. Is there any like habited areas?
Oh yeah, the tower is a whole city settlement here. The fortress has become a merchant town, and you're outside the gates of this city. It's a great big stone tower that's been carved out as a massive warren on the inside. It's 300-400 feet tall, and massively wide, a skyscraper of stone with this town outside of it.
Well, I'm wary of going in there since this seems to be some sort of trap. But he needs medical attention, so I'm going to go up to the gate and do whatever's necessary to get into the town and look for the nearest doctor or equivalent.
Oh, yeah. So you get to the gates. There's a bit of shouting from the gate people. They say it's almost dusk. It is almost dark. Get in. We shut the gates tonight. Come in quickly, and hustles you in with these other people who also seem very determined to get inside before it gets dark. So we will cut from the two of you entering into Nazli. Let's cut back to Simon. Simon, you've spoken with your father. Catherine says, I should go and check in with my family and friends to make sure that they are well.
I think that is a solid choice, provided you explain why you don't actually have a card.
I told you in the fighting, the Brea found the cards and mine was destroyed in that fight before I took off.
Right.
I think she meant to protect me from them following me.
Right, which would be noble in and of itself, save for the fact that there were 2 decks back in that previous shadow, one from each encounter. Now, our deck, of course, didn't have yours because it was destroyed, but the other deck didn't have yours either.
Perhaps they thought they'd finished.
Catherine.
She puts her hand on your shoulder and she says, I'm just so tired. I don't know exactly. I mean, I don't know. It is past my understanding. I've not traveled out in the shadows as you and the others have. Not nearly the years and time that with the experience that you have in these things.
One thing I found, especially when being in Amber, is you don't need to have been out in the shadows to cause that much damage. Take care of yourself. And I'll just kind of move on because she's not going to just kind of tell me, even though I really want her to. I'm going to kind of just.
Do you want to stay and try and pressure her?
Actually, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to regret it later if I don't. So I'm just gonna. I think I say take care of yourself, and I do walk away, and then it's just this moment that stops me, and I look back at her and I go, of the 3 of us that were back in that shadow world besides you, of me and Morgard and Joanna, I am the only one that is still even remotely on your side. So if you tell me what the actual full truth is, I might be able to help you instead of whatever will happen later when I can't.
I traveled far. And I heard a siren call. And I met a man. He had the power of pattern. He had the power of chaos. And he knew of us. And I thought he was one person, but he was not. And before I realized my mistake, I had already for want of a better word, given him my name and given him some power over me. And he said he would let me go if I helped him collect and he sent me to meet with Bray, and I sent her a note to draw her to that place. But then when those things came, those fiends came, they did not come only for her. They came for me as well. And so I fled. And I called to you.
Did he know of us before you spoke of us? Or did you not speak of us at all, and he already knew?
He knew something of you. But he did not know what you look like in full. And I thought he was my father. And I told him of you before I realized he was not. I know you were sent away by your own mother, but I did not even have that.
I will not judge you, but I will not stay here. In terms of keeping you safe, the best I can do is what I have already done. Go to your family, make sure they're all right, and take care of yourself.
Like, surely he cannot reach us in Amber.
He knows pattern. He knows chaos. And he has some control over creatures that know enough of what we look like to get to us. The best I can do is say if you weren't on one of those cards, perhaps your use has already been dealt with.
Do not tell the others. She puts her hand on your hands, please. Morgard, perhaps he is a forgiving soul, but Joanna is not.
I will do what must be done when the time calls for it. As for now, I can hold off until this is dealt with. But I have already spent too much time already, and I must speak with Benedict.
And she bows her head and she will head off.
I'll watch her until, I deem it a suitable distance, just to make sure that there isn't something that surprises me. And then I will turn and go search for Benedict, now with far more purpose and alacrity, because I know why the cards were drawn the way they were. Because it wasn't of someone who had actually seen us. It was someone who had actually been told of us and could only get that much of an image without having actually met us, because it's the same thing with the tower. You can only be there once you've been there. You can only see us once you've seen us.
Excellent. I'm going to cut away from you. You will head off to go see Benedict. Joanna, tell me, what's the biggest obstacle you face in trying to find a place to shelter you and Morgard here in this busy stone kind of Warren city?
I think this city is segregated into a lot of different castes, and each one of them has a lot of kind of customs associated with it. And because I don't know any of the customs, people are all looking at me funny. And like, I go to one doctor and he's like, "Oh no, we only serve the blue caste here." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not any caste. I just need a doctor." "Well, we can't serve you." And so,
You have to petition the king. Outsiders for services like that, you have to go to them, and that does not open until the morning.
Ugh. Can I find like a back alley doctor who maybe serves the lowest class of people?
What is the sort of the most squalid feature of this back alley doctor?
Probably the most alarming feature is that it doesn't have the construction like that would make me feel safe that it's not going to collapse. Like, it's very shoddily tunneled and
kind of covered over. They're not supposed to excavate further. That's obviously restricted because of the structural integrity of this place, but the population has grown. And so you go back into one of these, badly supported, ramshackle kind of places. You probably have to like slide at a couple of places, but eventually you will get to one of these things, this doctor, and he's got what you've seen on a few people around here. There's a lot of like stone dust and things in the air, so they've all like got their tears kind of yellow, kind of weeping down on their faces, almost like how a cat gets those traceries. And he will nod, sees that you're an outlander, and it goes baksheesh, coin. What do you have?
What kind of coin do you take in your car?
You're from outside. Give me something nice. All
right, I'm going to use the Logris to just grab some gold. I figure gold is a fairly universal currency.
Okay. So essentially you're going to grab some gold coins. Like, boom, you can grab that, I think. Somewhere in another part of the city, there's somebody going to their pocket and, "What? Where's my coins?" You'll drop those into his hand and he'll look greedily at them. He's like, "Oh yes, that's enough. And sits them off to the side. And we'll go and look to Morgard, and we'll proceed to set his arm and wrap it and get it braced into position, and then does the equivalent of smelling salts with like this little animal that he puts under your nose and then squeezes it, and it must be like a little skunk thing, because it gives a in your nose and you're awake like immediately, and your nose is kind of burning. You can tell you're not going to be smelling anything for a couple of days.
And I think my arms kind of bound up, against my chest. And I kind of start and look around and say, is this through the hole or is this real?
What hole are you talking about?
You're welcome.
I think you're welcome. I'm the one that brought you here and got your arm fixed up.
And I saved you from suffocating in the quicksand.
I think I saved you from some sort of trap that broke your arm.
That's fine. That's fine. I think I turn to the doctor. I say, "Oh,
You want tea? You want tea? Here. It's on the house. On the house, please."
I kind of look at the arm, and I think it's not done with a really good job. And I think I take the tea and I kind of sniff it. Don't smell anything at all.
No.
And then I think I take a big swig of it.
It's hot. It's hot dirt water for you, is what it is.
Yeah. And drink all the tea. I figure I probably need it. And then kind of stand up and say, "What have you found?"
Haven't found anything yet. I was busy taking care of you.
How long was I out?
Oh, a couple of hours. We're inside the tower right now, but I think we might be in a slightly different shadow. There can be many different manifestations of the same tower. But of course, you know that you've spent all your life studying these sorts of things.
We should probably get to a more stable area of the city, and I think I start leading the way out of this alley.
And he goes. The doctor goes. Hang on, hold on, and goes, and you see him get like a piece of rough cloth, and he puts some powders in it, and he wraps that and hands that to you, and he goes, "You'll need that for the pain later." And then turns to you, and he hands you back 2 of the gold coins, and out of the probably dozen that you handed him, and he goes, "There you go."
I'm gonna laugh, and I'm gonna give him back the coins again. I'm gonna say, I'll pay you for your little skunk creature. I quite like that thing.
Oh, he'll go and he'll get one and he'll put it in a box for you.
I mean, the coins are nothing to me, but I admire his honesty in giving me back some of the money. So I'll reward him by giving the money back again.
And the 2 of you can kind of scooch out of here, out into the city, and it has grown dark by this point, and you can see that most people have gone indoors, and it has gotten very quiet out here on the streets as you kind of moved out into the hollow. You can move out from outside the tower into the city itself, or you can stay here for the night, or you can move on.
Let's get to a nicer area of the city where we can actually stay and be more comfortable. And I think I lead Joanna towards a more well-lit area.
Okay.
Something that might be a little bit more affluent. And
you know what? The people in this city are very, they have all these castes. They're just a bit difficult to deal with. Is there any chance that you could shadow walk us to an adjacent city which is similar but maybe a bit more welcoming?
Of course, that wouldn't be any problem, but then would we find what we need to?
I don't know.
We can always walk back. It's no problem. So, well, if I'm not...
Actually, Morgard, you're the pattern expert. Can you tell me if we are in the same shadow? Because after you passed out, the light changed. So I thought maybe we'd moved into a different shadow, but what do you think?
We are definitely in a different place because this place is stable. The last place that we were in, the laws of physics didn't apply and everything moved. But I think I can find us a place to stay for the night. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk, towards a well-lit area.
Mm-hmm.
And as we turn a corner, I'm going to shift into another shadow. And this is the shadow that worships the old visitor of Joanna back whenever she was here and this place was a fortress.
Okay.
And as we turn the corner, there's like a statue that's like centuries old of Joanna there. And
now you're talking.
That's right. And I kind of walk up, and I think there's some people in the crowd that are whispering a little bit and kind of pointing. And I think we walk up to a really nice inn. And I say, we need a place to stay for the night. And I think that, esteemed guests such as ourselves will bring you lots of business.
To look at you with the uncertainty that a visitation in the night, and I thought, yes, come in, and they will have you enter into this hall, and brilliant. There's a probably a sketch on the wall of an artist's rendition of Joanna in that sort of illuminated Christ style kind of thing, and it's. They will treat you as honored guests. They will bring you food. This place subsists mostly on mushrooms and vegetables and underground grown things, and so they will bring you a great big hearty meal of that. And we'll say, one of them will come over and say, "Will you do us the honor of passing the night here?"
And I kind of look over at Joanna and I say, and I start to shovel the food in because I'm ravenous. And I'm like, Joanna, you should tell them some of your battle stories. And I just start eating.
And they turn to look at you. Would you gift us with a storyteller?
Of course. How could I refuse? And I think maybe I'm going to end up like editing their sacred texts, and they're going to have like these stories about me. I'm like, oh, it didn't happen like this. No, it was more. There were more people I was fighting. No, like 50,000 at least.
Absolutely. You begin to do the revisionist history. There's some people who are, oh, yes. And some people are going, I don't know. I see anti-doctrinalists. I'm not sure about that. Not sure we can do it.
I'm going to cause like a religious war over the next 2 centuries.
Yes. And so you'll be able to talk and rest and relax and eat, and your arm will be mobile but very sore, like achingly sore within the next couple days, Morgard.
Okay. I think I will continue to kind of favor it and keep it in kind of a sling kind of thing.
Okay.
Until, just to make sure it's okay for a while. And I think during the stories, I think Joanna's telling the stories and you see this rapt attention from all of the villagers there. And then you see Morgard kind of in the back and he's nodded off, kind of snoring a little bit.
Joanna, you were saying something?
Oh yeah, just we don't have to do this right away if you want to cut back to Simon, but at some point while we're staying there, I would like to find a moment alone and try and contact my sister Sybil.
Okay.
With her trump. I don't know. Can I just ask, do I have a set of trumps for my family or not?
I don't know how they. If you didn't buy them as an item, then you have to essentially acquire them in play. So the trumps that you have are the trumps for right now for the sort of badly made trumps that Morgard has a set of and that Simon has a set of, or rather that you have a set of and Simon has a set of. So you don't. The Sybil is probably the only one that you have an actual trump of. And I think you will go to contact that card to reach through, and much as the group got earlier when they tried to contact Brea, he's the Sybil is either blocking you or unconscious or dead, or something's blocking her from contacting you. Like the card kind of gets a little bit cold, but it doesn't go any further than that.
Well, my assumption is that she's blocking me. I think, and I feel stupid for even trying to call her. I was like, I don't like her that much, but I should do her a solid by warning her. And now she's blocking me. Oh, anyway, I'm sure she's fine.
Yeah, you make the absolute wrong assumption. I think that's perfect. Let's come back to Simon. Simon, are you going to contact Benedict?
Absolutely. I think I'm of two minds in character, and part of me is like, I need to get back to the other two. But the other part of me is definitely like, okay, before anything else, I need to get in touch with Simon. Or not, I'm Simon. Yeah. Benedict. I need to get in touch with Benedict. He'll have a firmer idea of how I should proceed, and also I need to let someone else in on the whole Orca craziness, because he might have an idea on how to deal with them.
And I'm going to say you spent 6 points on having him as a devotee. So I think that you don't have a full set, but I think you do have one of his cards.
Okay, cool. Then, I think I've watched Catherine walk away. I kind of return to the horse, and as I'm adjusting the bridle, I pull out Benedict's trump card, or trump, and just concentrate on it and try and get a hold of him as best as possible.
And that coldness, and then you'll feel that contact, and you'll see a shimmer, and you can kind of see the image of Benedict. Again, staff. He has one arm that is metal and the other that is human, and he seems to be walking along and you have the sense of maybe some glows of maybe some camp lights behind, and he says, Simon, it's been a while. What do you need?
I need to speak with you presently.
And he will reach out his hand to pull you through.
And I will take it and pull through.
Okay. And we'll transition, and you realize that you are still within that sort of golden circle of kingdoms that surround Amber. He's not that far into shadow. But you can see that there are some, like a small group of troops and so on. And he will say, it's been too long.
It very much has.
You were in Amber again. I saw that behind you.
Not by my own choice necessarily, although of my own volition.
How is your mother? I've not talked to my sister in some time.
I wish I could say I did not have the chance to speak with her. My visit is not one of pleasantries, unfortunately.
Why? What is the matter? Something seems to be troubling you.
I think I'll look both ways, and I think of the cards that I have from the poorly drawn deck, I'll just hand him one of me to start.
See him take it, and he kind of looks at it and do not recognize this hand. Who did you draw this?
I wish. It would at least make things more simple. But that said, someone is out to get a number of us, and I think I kind of, span out the rest of the cards in his direction so that the pictures are facing up, but that it shows the rest of us.
Siblings all, eh?
Yes, I was beginning to think it wasn't just siblings, but I was led astray briefly.
He will reach out and he puts his finger on one of the cards and he kind of moves it and slides it off to the side. And he says, and Joanna points the one he set off to the side. The rest are of Amber. Joanna is, but has forsaken her birthright. My suspicions immediately fall to there.
My suspicions would fall to different places that may or may not include that. However, I was just finished speaking with Lady Catherine, who told one story of escaping from these orca-like creatures that sought to take many of us out, and each one of us experienced them. Myself, Morgard, even Joanna.
Start at the start and tell me the full story.
Okay.
Total.
And I very much do. I make sure to include the full actual story of what Catherine told me. And I do my best not to let my own judgment color the actual events of what happened.
And he listens and he says, it does not surprise me. We are brought up in betrayal. Does not seem unusual to me that she would do this. That is a coin and a chip you should hold against her for the future.
Well, I haven't spent it yet.
And you're certain that Joanna this wasn't her doing, that the whole scene at her camp wasn't simply a ploy to gain your trust?
I read people well.
Fair enough. What Catherine says about Brea being sent out, that thing, it is a smart story to tell because the king has been sending people out because of the troubles we've had of late. Not many know of this, so if I tell you, I would ask that you be judicious with who you speak to about this.
I'm of the highest discretion.
We have had of late incidents in the shadows. We have found shadows that have been overlain with a skein, a second, like a sheet laying across a shadow that is a thread that can be pulled on, that can be shaped, that twists and knots. And we've seen a few of these things, almost like quicksand, like a changing. But we could pull the sheet away and restore the shadows to normal. But then we found other places where it seemed as if someone had taken the shadows themselves and stripped them and rewoven them into, for want of a better word, a tapestry, a fixed thing, its own pocket of shadow and skein and thread and so on. At least one, maybe two of my siblings have investigated into those and have not been heard back from yet. I do not know if there is a connection between these and those orcas that you speak of, but what Catherine is saying, that there is someone powerful and skilled in pattern and chaos out there, makes me think that we may be speaking of the weaver of these things themselves. It seems too coincidental to be anything but deliberate.
Well, we must be cautious. If it is said weaver, he or she or it can make themselves look like a very different person. Lady Catherine saw her father.
Shape-shifting. It is a gift of the courts of chaos.
Well, at least there are some laws that have yet to be entirely bent.
You should see to your friends, to Simon, to Joanna and Morgard, and see how fare the others. Bring whoever you can back here to Amber. You'll be safe here. And come, bring yourself to safety, and we will take care of the situation. We will look into it so that you do not have to endanger yourself.
I will regroup the others, but I know fully well it's not so simple to escape danger when it's seen our faces.
I had to at least try.
And I always respect that about you.
Well, be well and be careful. If this person has made these trumps, they may have some control over them. I know that my brother Brand had the power to listen in on other people's conversations using trumps that he had made. So be cautious.
Well, you know how to find me if you find anything else.
And he holds up a card that he has of you that he had commissioned. And he slides it back into his deck.
All right. And I'm from here. I'll do whatever I need to do to make a conscious effort to head to the tower.
Okay.
It is high time that I reunite.
Do you call? I mean, you have the trump. Do you call to Morgard or to Joanna?
I think I pull out Joanna's card and I go to address her, and then I give a brief look to Benedict.
He nods.
Yeah, like it's confirmation, and then I will contact Joanna.
Joanna, it is the next morning after having been up all night, kind of doing that rousing conversation. You're already hearing discussions in the street, argumentations. People are presenting things. Someone has taken a set of theses and nailed them up on some door somewhere, and that's going on in the distance. But you've gotten a reasonable sleep, and you will feel that tingle of Trump contact? Do you let it press through? Then you will see Simon.
Do I see Benedict as well?
Yeah, let's say you can see Benedict behind, like standing warily, like he's nodding and saying, "Yes, Simon, go ahead and contact Joanna." But he's also like at attention if anything unseemly should happen.
And just to confirm, Benedict is like the master commander of the previous generation, right?
Oh yeah, he is the baddest ass at warfare.
So I don't know if this is. Yeah, I think that he's like the one person in Amber that I really respect.
He will kind of see that image of you. You can tell he sees you through the card because there is an image that appears when someone contacts Trump, and he does kind of give you a curt nod, like of acknowledgement.
Simon and Benedict, I see. What news do you have?
I will glance at Benedict before saying, have you and Morgard experienced anything weird at the tower in terms of the shadow and things being just a bit off?
Yes, we had an incident. Morgard says that he sensed something about a hole, and something was very wrong with that shadow. And he was wounded in pulling us out of the hole. Mm-hmm. So he's sleeping right now, I think.
Noted. How soon can you two be willing to return to Amber, or would you rather I come through?
I don't know. Maybe we need to do some more investigation here. We've been hunkering down because Morgard was hurt, but we still don't really know what's going on at this tower. Where's Catherine? Is she with you?
I do my best to keep a totally straight face and just go.
Got us. Your first rank in psyche. You have a good poker face.
Yeah. And I go, she's safe for now. It's hard to know who to trust in Amber, but safety-wise, things are solid. Well,
she probably wouldn't have been much use anyway. What have you learned from Benedict?
And I'll just, do everything in my power not to raise an eyebrow at, oh, well, she would have been useless anyways, and focus entirely on the fact of there have been reports in other shadows of something of a skein or a sheet over certain shadows, something that presents them as a little bit off. And it does seem that there is someone out there, whoever is manipulating these orcas, who seems to be causing a number of these, and not only causing them, but controlling them. It's entirely likely that it's not just the tower is of significance, but the fact that there is more than likely a scheme of some kind over it. And if that is the case, it is much easier to trap someone there, which might be what has happened to our siblings and might be why we are having an issue contacting them. I know I've spoken with Benedict, and he has said that at least two of his siblings have gone out on similar missions like this and have not been heard from.
Two of his siblings from the older generation.
Indeed.
Well, that's very serious because they're like a level above us, right? I wouldn't say that in character.
Right, absolutely. I get that.
I know. I just kind of like kept a straight face, like, yeah.
Well, I think we need to investigate this sheet, as you call it. unless you have a better lead in Amber.
Admittedly, lead wise, I could use some more investigating myself, but if it's better served at the tower, then I can arrive presently.
We can always go back to Amber later, but it will be harder to get back to the tower, I think. So why don't you come through and then we'll go back to Amber.
Understood. And I will nod to Benedict. And just under my breath, you've got my card. And I will hold out my hand to be pulled through.
You'll step through. Morgard, you get up in the morning, feel a little bit better. What are you up to?
So I think that the first thing we need to do is make sure that we're safe here. And it seems relatively safe. That's the best we can figure out. And then the second is to investigate where Bray may be. And see if we can potentially find out what happened to them.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to start. I'll head downstairs. I'll grab Joanna and go contact her, and then I think we need to start looking around for Bray.
Okay. You will come downstairs and have dramatic convenience. You will come down just as Simon is being brought through the trump and is coming into here. And you three are gathered together again.
And I think I sit down at the table and I think I have them bring over some food. And as I start to eat, I tell Simon and Joanna, well, we've got a list of things that we need to do. And I think number one is to make sure that we're safe here, and then find Bray and figure out who's in charge of the orcas and figure out how they got trumps of us and figure out who's all involved. There's something weird going on with the manipulation of the shadow. And because, these orcas shouldn't be able to walk through shadow. And whenever we came here, this place was odd. So there must be something important about this place that we need to look around at.
And I think the first words out of my mouth are, Joanna mentioned that you experienced something of a hole earlier. Was there anything like quicksand?
Oh, absolutely. It felt like this entire shadow was built out of fabric, and Joanna was falling into a gap in the fabric, and I was tilted and thrown off balance. And whenever I reached out to grab Joanna, it pulled so hard it knocked me unconscious and broke my arm. But Joanna, of course, saw none of this.
I think I would have been fine, honestly. Whatever's at the bottom of the hole, I would have just turned into an elephant and stomped on it. But I'm glad that you pulled me out.
Assuming there's a bottom of the hole.
Why? Have you heard of such a thing? I mean, did you experience the same thing whenever you came here?
I have not yet experienced the same thing, but I spoke with Benedict back in Amber, and there have been reports of similar things in different shadows. I was letting Joanna know earlier there are skeins, sheets of some kind over different shadows, making everything just a little bit different, but whatever's there can be more easily manipulated. And my working theory right now is that that's how they're trapping our siblings, is leading them here in some way and using something that most of us wouldn't necessarily be aware of if we didn't already know about it. And using that to trap us in a way that would be hard to get out of. And Benedict, as I was telling Joanna, has two brothers or two siblings who have also gone missing and have not been heard from. So,
who would do such a thing, and how? But that's a very good theory, Simon. I'm very impressed that you found all of this out. It's very. I mean, you talked to Benedict and found all of this stuff out, and all I did was break my arm and have a great meal.
doesn't sound like you're complaining too much.
Oh no. So this place is not unique. We know that now. We don't know if it's safe to travel, because whenever we travel, we could fall into another one of these difficult to escape fabric shadows.
You had a sense of this. Certainly, you were able to spot it. You think, Morgard, given that you moved a little bit on the shadows to get over to this place, that you might be able to carefully walk around here and try to find the anomaly, and maybe you wouldn't necessarily fall in.
Okay. If we, maybe maybe this is where Bray is. Maybe Bray came to this location, stayed behind whenever Catherine was here and escaped, and Bray fell into the fabric and was wrapped up in it. So if we are able to find the fabric, it's possible that we could pull her out.
So Bray could be here, but not quite here.
Yeah, it could be trapped here.
I like that theory. And if we can figure out a way to manipulate it here, it's possible that we could apply the same principles elsewhere.
Possible. It will take some study, but it's fascinating. I mean, this is a really, really interesting idea of manipulating shadow to overlay it on top of other shadows.
It seems to me it's less of manipulation of shadow over shadow and more inducing chaos over shadow.
That's interesting. That's an interesting idea. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
So I think we should leave the inn, and as we walk out, we'll kind of start walking down the block.
Okay.
And we'll turn a corner and head back in the same direction, only now the statue that was Joanna is like a fountain. And, there's a little pang of sadness.
And you will move through those shadows and kind of shift along. You kind of you're changing little things and moving things along, and then you come up short, Morgard, because it's not a complete thing in front of you. It's like a tapestry, like a long tapestry almost in your vision here, overlaying the scene. And have you ever seen those like filters in Photoshop or whatever where they make everything look like weave?
Yes.
Look like thread or so on. It is that you see like there's a section and you can tell that it like things have been pulled into it and it has been woven out and it's kind of hanging there in front of you. You can probably sort of make it out, Simon, as well, because you can kind of see in the next shadow. And you can see the landscape sort of drawn in thread and stitch ahead of you. Even as you can hear the screams behind you from the city. And you will see these massive figures, these orcas, 2 or 3 dozen of them, rushing through the streets, beginning to pour through, pushing people aside, coming in pursuit of you. You could push on into this weave, you could go back to face the orcas, or you could go somewhere else. For you, Joanna, primarily, you'll see that they've stopped and like something is clearly wrong up ahead, even as you hear the sound of the what you know. I mean, you know the sounds of fighting. What do you guys want to do?
So I study the weave a little bit, and I turn to Joanna. Whenever I hear the screams behind me, I think it takes me longer than the others to recognize what's going on. And I think I turn to the others, what should we do? I don't think this way is safe until we know more about it.
I can hold off the orcas for a while if you want to try and get into this place and see if you can rescue Brea. But it's up to you to decide if you can get in and out.
I don't know that I want to try to get in and out, and I don't know that I want to try to. I don't want to separate us, like what was done with Catherine and Brea.
I've got your trumps.
But we know that those don't always work.
Especially not when we're not conscious.
Plus, I can grab you with the Logris if I have to.
Can you grab Brea with the Logris?
So yeah, well, the Logris, I can kind of anything I can visualize, I can reach out and grab it, but it takes longer if it's further, right?
Yeah. And I think if you call up the Logris, hearing those forces coming closer, that tendril will dart towards that weave and will come up short. Like it tries to go in, but it can't.
Mm.
I have an idea. If you can figure out a way through it and you can open it just wide enough, I'll go through with the tendril, with the Logris. I've got the best chance of getting in and out of there alive.
So I think that if there's 3 of us, who's going to hold off the orcas?
I have some friends in a neighboring shadow.
Do you have enough friends? And we know that shadows,
And here's the thing is you can't actually bring people over into the shadow. You'd have to walk and then walk them back to the shadow. Or you could pull them through one at a time with your Logris.
That's probably not going to be efficient enough to deal with the orcas. Can I fight while also maintaining a tentacle?
You can try.
How about if you fight and hold them off while Simon and I try to get through?
You're the best trained fighter of us.
So I think that's what we'll do.
Okay. Then tell me, Joanna, they're in coming down streets. So you've got that sort of first group of them. What do we see on screen? How do you hold off these first group of them that are rushing down at you?
I'm gonna shapeshift, and I'm gonna grow larger. I'm gonna be 8 or 9 feet tall, pop out of my armor, unfortunately, but I can get some more later.
Right.
And big and hairy, 3 eyes, kind of like asuras in Indian mythology, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna start swiping at these creatures.
Big hand, send them flying back. These first ones, smashing into walls. We see that going on, kind of using their own bodies to help create a barricade for you. Morgard, how do you open this weave?
So I think what I actually do is I start concentrating on the pattern itself and using the pattern. And it's a way I hadn't considered before, but almost like a big pair of scissors. And I'm going to try to wedge the scissors into the weave to kind of slice into it so that I can get a small opening.
Kind of do a snip to
Yeah.
get yourself that first break. And I think this is the point at which we're going to use GM's fiat here. I think that we will see that kind of rip, and you will all feel this shadow that you're in. All of this it's like a maelstrom. Suddenly there's this force, like the shadow, all of it itself gets sucked in, and you will see those orcas go flying. This whole thing, everything kind of shrinks through. Simon, you're standing there, and then suddenly you're pulled into this weave. Morgard, you're probably the first one, yank through. We see Joanna get pulled, probably claws holding on with the Asurazi before kind of pulled in. And we will see the three of you crash onto another landscape. And that's what we'll take up next time.
Fantastic.
Do you guys mind doing just a couple of minutes of stars and wishes here at the end? Since this is our second session, I wouldn't mind getting some feedback. So stars, things you liked in this session or the last session, about other people's play, about the system, about the game itself. And then wishes, things you want to see more of. Things you'd like to be able to do, those are that, and you can do both of them at the same time, or you can just do one and we can go around. It's up to you. Stephen, I'll start with you.
So let's start with wishes.
Okay.
I wish I could bring my familiar into things more. I keep trying to figure out how to pull them in, and I was able to do it last session during a fight, but it feels really weird for us to be talking amongst each other and doing stuff, and then all of a sudden, and then the familiar appears. Bam! It's just weird and clunky right now.
Yeah, we'll try to make sure we get Artax in next time, definitely.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else wishes wise?
I have to admit, the system's a little weird in that I'm looking for things to do, and it's a little bit harder for me to find them. What am I good at? And I'm still trying to reach out and push. And I guess I'm a little hesitant to say, well, now's the time whenever I pull the bazooka out of my little pocket and shoot. It seems a little weird as to where the limits are. Yeah,
it is a game, I think, as it's originally written, that is much more of the GM pounding on the players in the 90s than I'm willing to do here in the 2019s. So there's a little bit of that. But the other thing is, I think we need to play more. Like we got to be thinking next time I need to stop and look at what you've got with advanced pattern imprint. So and because that should be really potent. That should be that should be your bazooka that you can use a lot in many different ways. And I need to make sure I give you some opportunities for that.
I looked through that some this session, and to be honest, I didn't see much of a difference between pattern imprint and advanced pattern imprint. And it seemed like a lot of the stuff, it literally said that a lot of the stuff with advanced pattern imprint required walking the pattern in your mind, which would exhaust you. So it seemed a little iffy. I'm not sure on it.
For me, I'll tell you how I'm going to read that is that you are better at that kind of stuff. Like you are stronger and better at it. That's how I want to read that.
Okay.
Anything else?
I'll do stars after everyone else gets a chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Peter, let's start with wishes then. Let's have you do anything you want to point to as wishes, things you want to see more of. Be able to do.
I think I was finding... I found a little bit of what Stephen was saying with sort of like trying to figure out what to do. In the same vein, I think the steps that I sort of took this session particularly ended up sort of one thing following after another. Like it ended up being like I talked to Catherine And then even my father mentioned, oh, we'll talk to Benedict. And it was like, I did a lot of talking, which paid off tremendously. But it was also one of those things where I was like, I'm going along with this. I do feel a little tiny bit like, yeah, that's where I should go. But I was also like, I gotta catch up with everyone else at one point. And I think that's really my wish is I want to be able to engage with the other player characters more.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing is when you have a game that has that much freedom as this game does, it also doesn't have a lot of signposting about what you can do and what your options are. You know, I'm always, when I move away from PBTA or games that have moves that, you know, I know, okay, I don't know what to do. Let me look at the moves. As for me as a player is always a fallback. So not having that net is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Anything
And so,
else? Yeah.
No, I think that's basically it. Just I want to be able to interact with the other player characters more, and I'm excited that we'll have a fourth to do that with for the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Will, anything you want to say wishes wise?
I don't know. I don't really have that many wishes. I guess plot wise, I would like to run into Sybil or Eric at some point. Just like I don't know, like get that kind of family interaction with the family that I don't like. But I think definitely one thing that my character wants to do at some point is try and use the Logris to contact Eric.
Okay.
She gets a chance. I don't know if that'll work. Probably, it definitely won't work while we're trapped in this hole. But anyway, so yeah, no, I don't really have any strong wishes.
Okay, but then that's I appreciate you pointing to that because that helps me get a sense of what we want to do, and we'll also give you a big fight. You know, that's the other thing we'll give you because you're the for some nice warfare stuff. Okay, Stephen, stars.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the interaction between Simon and Joanna and Benedict, and that whole process was very, it was very much fun to watch and experience, and all of that. It was done really well. And I also like so for Joanna, Will seems to have a really good grasp of the world. It's been so long since I've read the books. I'm struggling a little bit. That's why I was looking up, pattern imprint and what do these things do. And I was trying to kind of come up to speed on some of the stuff. But it seems like to me, at least, Will, you've got things down pat. So that's it feels like you're kind of carrying me a little bit. So that's right. That's really nice. Oh, and on top of that, whenever you have a game like this where the characters are basically, they can come up with almost anything they want to, how do you challenge them? And from the get-go, with these orca creatures, it was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to run away from them. And then they followed. And then they came after us. And they were tough. And they caused a lot of problems. And it was like, oh, this is masterful in being able to take characters that can do just about anything and challenge them. So, very good.
Awesome. Peter, anything you want to point to, stars?
Yeah. First off, Stephen, I absolutely love Morgard so much. I love the instinctive choice of, well, we can't get separated, and the choice to go along with, oh, well, you just have to, you can do this. You'll just end up breaking your arm. And your immediate response is, oh, okay, I'm okay with that. And it's the first time in a game that I've ever just seen someone go, oh yeah, no, that's totally okay. Because I've seen far more like deliberating bits over just like, is it a good idea for me to do that? But I love that you've taken Morgard, a character where like you don't like have the top in any of like the 4 areas, but you clearly are like outfitted with being able to do so many other things that it's so much fun to kind of go, well, where's Morgard going to go with this? Because he's got a plan. I have no idea what it is. Which also made me very happy when he was like, oh, well, that was a pretty impressive idea. And I had to sit there and go, Simon is probably like, impressive, that was brilliant. I'm going, yay. And Will, oh man, like I want to interact more with Joanna because I love that, like, you know, I may have all of these 3 areas of like I'm the best at this, but you never let me forget for a second that you are the like top tier in warfare, and like that has presented itself so many times where you're just like, oh no, I'm not here to help them, they're here to help us. And I was like, what? How much can I? Okay, fine, I'll let that slide. And I thought it was, I just loved that interaction because it's just like, we're on the same level in a few things, but let's, all right, fine. And I love the history between Joanna and Benedict, and how you said, oh yeah, he's probably one of the few people I actually respect. I'm like, lucky me. Yeah, and Lowell, thanks for just being so wonderful to play off of all these different characters and everything. Because I love getting into these like super thought out discussions where by the end I'm like, I've learned a lot. What did you actually do? I had a 10-minute conversation. Like, but that was always something that I enjoyed growing up reading the Amber books.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it was just about kind of the back and forth of like them playing mind games with each other. And I don't know how this mind game is going to play out, but it's super fun to go, I may be the best at it. That doesn't mean I'm golden. So
awesome. Will, I'm going to give you last word on stars here.
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks everyone. I had a great time. Stephen, I loved the kind of the duo of my character and your character, the brains and the brawn. And I really liked that detail you threw in of my character having these people worshipping her. A bit of like the episode of Firefly, if you know that one. That was a really good detail. And Peter, I really liked that scene with you and Catherine. That was like a really, really like tense emotional scene, and I really liked that you kept pushing it. Like you were going to walk away, and then you're like, no, actually, I'm gonna.
That was good. Yeah.
And yeah, Lowell, I think you're doing a really good job of kind of setting the tone of the Amber setting. Like, I think it's a pretty difficult setting to actually evoke, because it's like anything could happen, but there are certain things that kind of wouldn't. Like, hypothetically, we could go to a cyberpunk world, but I don't think that would fit with the 70s fantasy tone, even though it's technically possible, because literally anything is possible in Shadow. So I think you're doing a really good job of holding onto that Zelazny tone, and I especially really liked the description of the trap, and with like the cloth as a little prop to explain a pretty weird metaphysical concept.
Awesome. Well, I am super looking forward to next session. I had a great time tonight. Super enjoyed running it. And so I'm going to stop the recording